Masima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Ukraine and Russia have agreed to a localized ceasefire near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to allow repairs to damaged power transmission lines. Italian police officers had seized 1.08 million euros in cash during searches linked to an investigation into the alleged financing of Hamas through charities based in Italy. President Archange Touadéra is seeking a third term as general elections began today after a 2023 constitutional change scrapped term limits. However, Touadéra is still favored to win over opposition figures Ansat Georges Dolu Gele and Henry Marie Dondra, with provisional results due on January 5th next year. Britain and Germany have signed a $70 million joint procurement deal to acquire the RCH-155 mobile artillery system. As the UK Defence Ministry said, the system can fire 8 rounds per minute, with units to be tested by both the British and German armies. Fresh clashes have been reported in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Uvira, where M23 rebels seized the strategic town earlier this month, despite a US-brokered peace deal reaffirmed by Kinshasa and Kigali. Congo's army reportedly struck M23 positions with drones at Kalundu port on Lake Tanganyika. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has appointed conservative politician and former United Future Party lawmaker Lee Hae-hyun as the budget minister, signaling a cross-party move, as Lee Hae-hyun said she supports the president's goals of economic growth and expanded social welfare. Kosovo is headed to the polls today in its second election of this year, with nationalist Prime Minister Albin Kurti and his Veterinejovski party seeking a majority to end a year-long political deadlock that has paralyzed the parliament. Failure to form a government risks derailing the ratification of $1.2 billion in EU and World Bank loans. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with US President Donald Trump in Florida's Mar-a-Lago. Key topic of discussion will be Zelensky's 20-point proposal for peace between Russia and Ukraine. Now we start with Ukraine and Russia. According to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Ukraine and Russia have agreed to a localized ceasefire near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant to allow repairs to damaged power transmission lines. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi has said the temporary halt in fighting was brokered by the agency to ensure safe access for repair crews. The work is expected to take several days and is being monitored on the ground by an IAEA's team. Russia says the situation at the Russian-controlled nuclear plant remains stable. State news agency cited a plant spokesperson saying electricity is currently being supplied through one high-voltage power line. The Zaporizhzhia plant, Europe's largest nuclear facility, has repeatedly lost external power since the war began, raising international concerns about nuclear safety. The IAEA has called for continued restraint around the site, warning that any damage to power supplies could increase the risk of nuclear accident. Now we welcome Professor Andy Latham. He's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how significant is that IAEA has successfully brokered or led Russia and Ukraine to agree to a ceasefire just around this Zaporizhzhia's nuclear power plant?
Well, it's significant in two respects, one of which, and important, one of which is the safety. The power plant is not generating any power, but it requires external electrical power in order to maintain the cooling and other safety systems. If they were to fail, then you might have a 3-mile island kind of nuclear meltdown thing, which wouldn't be very good. And to be blamed, whether it's Kyiv or Moscow, to be blamed for that would be very bad in terms of public diplomacy. But the other interesting point here is that it's clear that if the stakes are high enough, Moscow and Kyiv can actually come to some kind of a ceasefire agreement, not a peace agreement, but a temporary ceasefire agreement. And if that were to happen along the entire front, then we'd have a Korea 1953-like armistice arrangement, which would be better than the current hot war. So it signals to the Russian population, the Ukrainian population, and the global population that even if a peace deal is beyond our reach at the moment, a ceasefire, if the stakes are high enough, is very doable.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that, Professor. And how might this temporary, although temporary, issue-specific ceasefire, can we be hopeful that it can influence more cooperation or military calculations, easing out the tensions between these two countries?
I think more than the beginning of a snowball rolling down a hill, this is simply a proof of a concept. It is possible. Will this now lead to another ceasefire and another ceasefire? I don't think so. That's not what's on the table here. But it does prove that such ceasefires are possible if both parties think the stakes are sufficiently high. And that's one of the more promising signals we've had recently, the 28-point and then 19-point and now 28 peace plans. I'm not even guardedly optimistic that they're going to yield much. But I do think that if both sides see that this has diplomatic but also domestic political payoffs, this ceasefire around this Zaporizhzhia plant, then they might be inclined to try it elsewhere. And then we might see, if it happens once, it's good luck. If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, it's a real trend that might bring the shooting phase of this war to an end.
With that, I would like to thank Professor Angie Latham for joining us as an international affairs expert from Minneapolis. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Asia. Political parties in Thailand drew lots of numbers that will represent their parties on the ballot papers when the country goes to the polls in February. The numbers picked by each party will be used during campaigning to get the public familiarized with them before heading to the voting booths. Less than 100 days after he was elected premier, Thailand's caretaker leader Anutin Charnvirakul has dissolved parliament earlier this month when his minority government faced the threat of a no-confidence vote. If re-elected, Anutin has said that the key executives of his government will keep their roles, including Finance Minister Ekniti Thanprabas, Foreign Minister Sihasak Phongketeko, and Commerce Minister Supaji Sutumpun. Yochanan Wongsawat, a leading prime ministerial candidate with the Pheu Thai Party, said he hopes the election would be a new beginning of hope for the country. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a geopolitical strategist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what political direction might Thailand take, depending on whether continuity under Charnvirakul, Anutin Charnvirakul, or change under opposition figure like Pheu Thai prevails?
Yeah, Asubha, good evening. Thank you for inviting me for your show in the evening.
Thank you.
Before I respond to your question in specific, it's very important for me to give a little, preamble, very short reflections, because our audience need to understand why Thailand elections are round the corner, coming to the limelight. You see, Thailand's political party system has to be understood in totality. Thailand operates as a constitutional monarchy. This is the most important thing. And when you talk about the constitutional monarchy with a multi-party parliamentary system, now what I mean to say, when I say that multi-party parliamentary system, one also has to keep in mind that its democracy is considered as a kind of a hybrid or strange and undemocratic due to significant military and elite influence and frequent military coups, constitutional constraints designed by the military, and a powerful unelected Senate. It creates a very complex system where elections don't always translate to true civilian rule. This has to be understood in totality, otherwise we may be conveying a wrong message. So with this backdrop, a very quick reflection about the constitutional monarchy. The king is the head of state, but the power rests with the elected government, that is the prime minister and the National Assembly. Now the election for which these tickets, they have a system of drawing the lotteries. There are 52 parties which have come up. There are about 100 odd. Out of that, 52 parties have been shortlisted by the election commission, and they go through a process of lottery, and each one tries to have the single digit number, so that people, when they go to cast their own ballot or the vote, it's very easy to remember. Now this is to be understood that the monarchy is the head of state, but the actual executive power is with the Prime Minister and the National Assembly. The second thing that I wish to highlight is the parliamentary system. It is two houses or the bicameral National Assembly, upper house and the lower house. You call it as House of Representatives with the lower house and the Senate in the upper house. They make laws, they legislate laws. And with Prime Minister is the leading personality amongst the executive. Now, when I talk about the multi-party landscape, this also has to be understood that many parties exist in Thailand, and they form pro-reform like Move Forward Party. Likewise, they have different names. To pro-military royalist groups, often forming complex coalitions. Now, the question that comes up, I have been going around lecturing on the subject to people in the IITs and AIMs, etc., etc. Students, the PhD students, they ask particularly questions. Why is it not a full democracy? And it is not a full democracy because the military influence has a deep-seated role in politics, often intervening via military coups or influencing constitutional power. This has to be understood. And what power does the Senate have or the upper house? The Constitution allows the unelected military-appointed Senate to vote for the Prime Minister, effectively blocking popular choices, as has been seen in the recent past, that is 2023. There is a deep state in Thailand. That also has to be understood. That every election is by and large has been driven by a deep state, which is entrenched network of military, monarchy, and elites control power, limiting genuine democratic transitions. These are the complexities of Thailand, and hence it leads to a kind of a constitutional instability because of the frequent changes to constitution. So there are 17 of them since 1932 which have taken place. It reflects constant instability and efforts by elites to reshape rules. And I would like to conclude my remarks, Asuma, if you allow me half a minute more. I would say that Thailand has democratic structures like elections and multiple parties. Structural constraints and entrenched power mean it functions more as a hybrid regime than a fully functioning independent multi-party democracy. That is all I have to share, and back to you, please, Asuma.
Thank you for sharing that. And you know, as you have rightfully shared and shed light on the how the structure is right now, and also I completely agree with you that you mentioned or you described the Thailand's democracy as a limited democracy and hybrid regime. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this affects the Thailand's current or how Thailand the voting or election can take Thailand to different direction because of these limited democracy or the structure?
A great question that you have asked. My take on the whole issue is that it is going to be driven by the military, and military will have, you call it as a puppet government or the deep state government. The deep state is driven by the monarchy. It will have some influence, rather majorly the influences of the military. Put together, they form a government, and that government becomes a puppet government. It is not going to be 100% people's, like in democracy you call it of the people, for the people, by the people. That interpretation cannot be applied for Thailand. There is going to be some kind of autocratic form of election, authoritarian type of government which will come into force, thereby denying the freedom of expression, the fundamental rights whether it is the human rights or livelihood or education, all such things are actually, they have a limited application amongst the mass of the population. That is why the people are aggrieved. That is what the main issue is. Thailand, unfortunately, because now you have to understand from the larger perspective, there is a strategic rivalry taking place in this region. The strategic rivalry, Thailand is pro-America, and you have Cambodia, which is off and on, we keep hearing that there is a conflict which is on, and lately, I think today or yesterday, they have gone in for peace, some kind of a ceasefire.
Yes.
Cambodia is dominated by China. America on one hand is trying to push back China from this region. China on the other hand is trying to make deep penetration and expand its sphere of influence and dominance. That is the bigger game at the global level. But at the regional level, what is happening is that Thailand continues to be dominated by the deep state driven politics, and the deep state driven politics does not give the rightful entitlement of democratic aspiration of the people of Thailand. That is I would say the bottom line or the grassroots requirement of any democracy anywhere, and particularly since it is a multi-party democracy, if it has got a deep penetration of military into its functioning and application, well, the true democracy cannot actually fructify, cannot blossom in a country like Thailand. It will continue to be dictated by what the military wants. Back to you, Asuma.
Thank you for highlighting and also covering the regional and global level of this Thailand's election and the current government. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji. We'll come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Italy, Italian police have said that they have seized more than 1 million euros in cash as part of an investigation into the alleged financing of Hamas through charities operating in Italy. Authorities have said that the searches were ordered by prosecutors in the northern city of Genoa and carried out nationwide by police and financial investigators. The cash was found at the offices of a pro-Palestinian charity and inside of the private homes of suspects, including money hidden in a concealed compartment in a garage in the northern town of Sassuolo. Investigators have also seized computers hidden inside a wall cavity at a property in the province of Lodi, along with other electronic devices that will be analyzed in the coming days. Moreover, prosecutors have also identified 63-year-old Mohammed Hanoun as the alleged leader of what they described as an Italian cell. Hanoun is the president of the Association of Palestinians in Italy and also the founder of the ABSPP. According to prosecutors, more than 71% of donations collected by ABSPP and related associations were allegedly diverted to entities controlled by or linked to Hamas. Now, Italian prosecutors have confirmed that 9 people have been so far arrested on suspicion of financing Hamas. They also allege that around 7 million euros were raised over the past 2 years for humanitarian purposes, but was diverted to Hamas-linked entities. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a geopolitical strategist, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how unfortunate is it that, people with goodwill have, of course, donated for this charity, and this whole thing was going to a terrorist organization or Hamas. And what political challenges does this investigation pose for Italy for balancing their counter-terrorism efforts with the protection of charitable activities?
Soma, thank you once again for taking me for this question as well.
Thank you.
You see, more than the politics is the strategy. And the strategy to fight against any terrorism has to be global, it cannot be local, or it cannot be national specific, in my opinion. So therefore, there is a requirement of jointness or synergy amongst multiple nations in the world, or at least those who are affected. And now, given the fact that Muslim Brotherhood has made very deep penetration into Europe, and they are being provided, I won't call it a sanctuary, but some kind of a shelter. They are being promoted, they are being encouraged to flourish in Europe, I think this is providing a fertile ground for conduct of these nefarious activities. Now, what are the nefarious activities? Collection of funds. Collection of funds for, on the face of it, they call it as humanitarian, for supporting the next of kin of the terrorists, or medical aid, or livelihood, or etc. etc. But that money, unfortunately, goes through a complex process of money laundering or transactions, and then goes into the hands of the Hamas. And what do they do with the money? They buy weapons, lethal weapons, and that is how the arming is going on. Like you rightly said, 71% or more they go in. And very interestingly, you see, they have 9 people have been apprehended or arrested, and they are accused of raising around 7 million euros or 6 million pound for Hamas over more than 2 years. So if you look at 7th October 2023 till, let's say, 2 years is this October 2025, they have raised around 7 million. But what is most interesting and very, very dangerous is that they have seized more than 8 million euros, which is equivalent to 7 million pounds, in assets as part of the investigation. Assets could be weapons, it could be vehicles, it could be communication satellite communication, it could be anything, military hardware, it could be medical support system, likewise. Or the power generating generator sets, etc., etc. So that's a very dangerous combination. So when it happens this way, I personally feel there is a requirement to have joint tests of these investigations. People have to cooperate and collaborate for successful apprehension and subjecting them to judicial trials in a corresponding country. They have to link it up as to who are the people from Palestine or Hamas or the territory of Israel who are involved in this. So for this, we have to keep an eye on the following things. As per me, my opinion says that money transactions have to be scrutinized, and it has to be kept under surveillance. One. Number two, we have to find out as to who is the sender and who is the receiver, and how it is being consumed or expended. Number three, we have to see the communication. There is definitely going to be some kind of a communication by internet, by social media, by telephone. We need to actually focus our effort onto finding out the communication, and most probably they are using the encrypted form of communication systems. That has to be decoded. Last but not the least, the complete ecosystem has to be studied in detail. Only then we can come to some kind of a preventive measure so that it doesn't recur, so that you can put pressure on Hamas for disarmament. This is what I'm looking at. Not the political parties which will have any kind of impact or influence, be it in the Italy or otherwise. Hamas as such, Hamas is a political party. Its military wing is called as Al-Qassam. Al-Qassam is a person who was killed by the British police way back in 1935. So based on his name, they have formed
Major General. Yes, Major General, unfortunately we're running out of time for this discussion, but thank you for shedding light on all the angles of this news and joining us once again. Thank you very much. Now we stay in the region. Gazans living in dilapidated tents in Khan Yunis are struggling to cope with cold and wet winter conditions as strong winds and heavy rain sweep through southern Gaza. Video from the area shows tents flapping violently, offering little protection as families try to secure weak tarpaulin or fabric covers. The severe weather has left many tents flooded, adding to the hardship faced by residents living in makeshift shelters. Gazan authorities have warned that heavy rain could cause more war-damaged buildings to collapse and say the conditions are complicating efforts to recover bodies still trapped under the rubble. The weather comes as a fragile truce remains in place under the first phase of US-backed plan. While large-scale fighting has eased, violence has not fully stopped, with both sides accusing each other of violations amid ongoing humanitarian challenges on the ground. Let's listen in.
قراءة عليهم الناس الشتاء لسه كانوا يقولوا الصيف ها حمل خيمة نار. لسه النار أحسن من الشتاء هيك البرد. تقدر تطلع في الشوب تشلح تشمر نص كم وتمشي ها. بس الحين فيش الحرامات والفرشات كلها مي. فيش شيء تدفي حالك فيه.
كله خشب وقماش زي ما انت شايف، يعني هاي صور عندك هنا كله قماش، كله قماش في قماش. اللي بنقدر احنا نعمله بنعمله، هاي اللي بنقدر عليه. طبعا الحرب لها سنتين وشويه، قدر المستطاع كنا نلملم. لقيت لا ضل فلوس ولا ضل خيام ولا ضل شوادر. الخيام انتقلت يمكن 6-7 مرات. يعني الخشب نفسه نخ مع الميه والرطوبه والرمل، ما ضلش شيء الحمد لله. اقل ريح كله وقع.
Now we move on to France. Parisians have remembered Brigitte Bardot fondly as it was announced that the French cinema icon has passed away at the age of 91. Speaking in Paris' 15th arrondissement, where Bardot was born, they recalled her beauty and her early films, especially those that had provoked strong reactions amongst the French audiences. Bardot rose to global fame with her breakout controversial role in the film And God Created Women, which came out in 1956, directed by her then-husband Roger Vadim. She starred in 47 films during her career, working with renowned directors like Jean-Luc Godard on Les Mépris and Louis Malle on Viva Maria, for which she was nominated for a BAFTA Award for Best Foreign Actress. She was also a passionate activist, using her platform to campaign for animal protection worldwide. Let's in fact listen into what some of her fans have shared.
C'était une icône, même à l'international. Non, Brigitte Bardot, ça, moi qui suis à un certain âge maintenant, j'ai toujours connu l'ère de Brigitte Bardot. On a apprécié ses films. Elle avait fait même ses premiers films qui avaient fait plus ou moins fureur, pas scandale, mais avec... Non, mais ça me fait un choc de savoir qu'elle est décédée.
Et je ne sais pas si j'étais voir des films d'elle. Je sais qu'à l'époque, le premier qui était sorti, c'était... Je me souviens qu'on a monté au lycée, moi j'étais au collège, et il y avait Brigitte Bardot et Charrier, son premier mari. Et la pub, c'était BBM Charrier, c'était la pub pour Perrier. Elle avait sa petite robe à carreaux Vichy. Et voilà, c'était ça l'image sans doute, du coup j'avais 12 ans ou 13 ans pour aller en montant au collège.